Okay, so this is a video on how to use Desmos, the graphing software that is on your Chromebook. So you'll notice on your app bar down at the bottom of your Chromebook, you should have this icon that is this blue shield, and that's Desmos test mode, the blue shield. I believe you also have an icon that is green. It should look like this. It's on my tab up here, this green with this curve on it. That's the regular Desmos app that you can get online. Now, test mode is what you will use on the STAR test when you take STAR tests at the end of the year. So we try to use this test mode app as much as possible throughout the year so that we can get used to it. There's some of the features in test mode that are not available in test mode that are available on the online app. But like I say, you should have this test mode app on your Chromebook. If you don't, you can always go to desmos.com just in your Chrome browser, and then you could hit start graphing, and it's online, so you can use this anywhere. So I'm going to show you today, I'm going to be working out of test mode. Okay, so let's say you have an equation like y equals 3x plus 2. Boom, it graphs a line for you. It's really cool. You're really going to like this program. So you notice the line is colored in red. If you want to change the color of your functions, you go to this gear wheel right here, and then it's going to change the way this entry bar looks right here, and you can click on this color circle, and you can change it to make any color you want. And then you can hit done. So it automatically just grabs it for you. Now you can zoom out if you don't see enough of the picture, you can zoom in. And let's say you zoom in accidentally really far, because you can also like use 2 fingers and scroll up and down, and it zooms in and out for you. So let's say you accidentally hit your keypad, your mouse pad with 2 fingers, and you scroll in, you zoom in really far, and you can't see your line anymore. So you see this home button that comes up right here? If you click on that, it takes you back to the original, like a really good picture of your line. So once you put your equation over here, if you want an even wider screen of it, these arrows right here, it says hide expression list, you can click it and it'll give you a full picture of your line that you've graphed. And then you can click it and it'll open it back up for you. So what's really cool about Desmos is you notice if I click on my line, it has these gray points right here. I can actually click on those points and it will label them for me. So this right here is the y-axis. So the point I just clicked on is the ordered pair 0, 2. That's where our line is crossing the y-axis. So that would be our y-intercept. So it gives you that y-intercept point right there. But if you notice our equation is in the form y equals mx plus b. So the b plus 2 should be my y-intercept, and it is. Desmos is showing us that it is. Now this value here, negative 0.667, that's where the line crosses the x-axis. That's the x-intercept. So you could click on that point and it would label that point for you as well. So another cool thing about Desmos is if you're given an equation, you can also find slope. You could rise and run from Desmos. You just have to pay attention to your scaling. This one, you might have to use this point. Now, if it's not an x or y intercept, you can't click on the point. Desmos won't leave the point up, but you can like click on the line and drag your mouse, and it will give you the coordinates of the points, and you could slide your mouse up and down. Like I just found a really good point right there, -1, -1. So here's another really cool thing. You know, when y'all graph lines in 8th grade using a calculator, you always had to say y equals first. Well, watch this. What if I have a line 5x minus 2y equals 6? Boom, it just graphed it. Notice I didn't have to solve for y. It does not have to be in the form y equals. This is what we call standard form of a linear equation, and I didn't have to even solve it. Desmos will graph it for you in any form. So I can click, I can drag my screen around if I want to see maybe more. I want to see more of this area, and then I click on my line. It's going to bring those gray points up. I can click on them. It's going to label those points for me. I notice this is the y-axis, so here's my y-intercept, -3. Here's my x-axis, There's my x-intercept, 1.2. So, for instance, this equation right here, I can't just look at it and tell what the slope is because it is not solved for y. It's not in y equals mx plus b form. But you notice I've just given myself 2 points on this line. So I could take these 2 points and you could do linear regression in the calculator, the pink foldable that should be in your journal. That I made a video over that for you. You could take those 2 points. You could put your x coordinates in list 1. You put your y coordinates in list 2. And instead of rising and running, because it's kind of hard to see how much we rise and run, because the scaling's off, it's not exactly on 1 or 2, it's in between. It is actually at 1.2. But you could use those 2 points and do linear regression in the calculator, and it will just give you the slope. So you don't always have to solve for y. If you're not strong at solving equations, then you can't always graph them in Desmos. Find 2 good points, and then put those points in the calculator and let the calculator tell you the slope. So that's another really cool thing about Desmos. Now, if you want to change out what you're graphing, you can always hit this X button and it'll close out the whole thing. Or maybe you want to graph 2 things at one time. Maybe I want to graph the parent function. Maybe I just want to look at one of them. I can click on my green circle over here and it'll turn that function off so that I only see one at a time, and I can turn it back on, turn them off. It's really, really cool. So maybe we want to graph not a linear equation, maybe we want to graph an inequality. Well, Desmos does that for you too. So what if I have the linear inequality y is less than or equal to x plus 2, let's say. So if you notice down here, it says show keypad in the bottom left. If you hit on that arrow, it expands this. Now I'm using my keypad to type these equations in, but you could also use all of these buttons here with your mouse. So notice there's the y here. So I go up and I'll backspace that. I could say y, and then here's my inequality symbols right here. Less than x. You notice what it's doing. It's doing the shading for you as well. X, whatever I said, x plus 2. We'll do that. Look at that. It's automatically showing you that this inequality is going to have a broken line. There's a point there, point there. So here's my y-axis. That's my y-intercept. My x-axis, my x-intercept. There's my 2 points. I could rise and run. I see that this is rise up 1, 2, run 1, 2. So my slope should be 1, and it is because this is in the form y. There's my symbol, mx plus b. I notice there's a 1 in front of that x, so my slope is 1. I can see that my y-intercept should be 2, and it is. So it gives you all the points. So when you're graphing, I think I gave you a foldable to practice graphing inequalities. In class, we actually we graph these in Desmos, and then so how you would do that is you would graph your inequality in Desmos, and even if it's not solved for y, I'm going to change this one, x plus y. Change it like that. Notice this one's not solved for y, but it'll go ahead and graph it, and then I would find those 2 points, 2 good points, usually your x and your y intercept, would plot those on my graph on your paper, and then I would look to see if it's a broken or solid line, and then Desmos shows me which way to shade. You can zoom out and see a better picture. So there's a lot you can do in Desmos. This is just a brief overview. Like I say, if you are looking for maybe an exponent, later on in the year, we're going to graph parabolas. We graphed functions first 6 weeks, and so we had to use exponents. So you notice this button here, this a squared, well, that'll put an exponent of 2. Whoops. So right there, there's a parabola. That's a quadratic function. You can zoom in and out. So here's your exponents. If you want to put an exponent other than a 2, other than something being squared, you'd hit a to the b, and it just lets you put whatever exponent you want up there. I can do 4, I can do 6. You graph all kinds of functions. But if you can't find a key, a button that you're needing, a symbol, they're here. We're mainly going to use these symbols right here this year. There are lots of other symbols and functions over on this side, but we're not going to use these or focus on these this year. So these are the main symbols that we're going to use this year on this side. So I hope this gives you a little bit better understanding of Desmos. If you have any questions, let me know, and I'll be happy to make another video and answer any other questions that you have.